Hey, I'm Kenneth, but everyone calls me Ken. I just turned 33, and let me tell you, I've got quite a story to share. Before today's events, I didn't really believe in karma or anything spiritual. I thought it was all just in people's heads. But now, I've had a change of heart. I totally believe that what goes around comes around. And it's all because of my mean mother-in-law and her family. Well, except for my amazing wife, she's the exception. Despite growing up around all that negativity, she's still a wonderful person. Now let me tell you about the crazy stuff that happened on a sunny Wednesday morning in my house. Hey, could you come down here real quick? What's up, honey? I need to ask you something, and please don't say no. My wife gave me those adorable puppy dog eyes, and honestly, who could resist that? She explained how her mom, Georgina, was coming to town and needed a place to stay. I knew what she was getting at, and I quickly said no. But babe, it's just for the weekend. Can't you handle having a sweet old lady around for a couple of days? Let me tell you, that lady was anything but sweet. She was like pure evil, I kid you not. Dealing with her was like living in a horror movie. I often wonder how my wife turned out so kind despite having such a nightmare for a mother. As I started explaining why I couldn't handle having Georgina around and suggested she stay in a hotel, Kimberly started looking really sad. And like I said, I can't resist her sad face. She's got me wrapped around her finger. So reluctantly, I agreed. Kimberly was over the moon, thanking me like crazy. Since you're being so good about this, I'll make sure she behaves too. Don't worry. Hopefully, you won't even have to see each other. It'll all be smooth sailing, I promise. Well, that promise didn't last long because what happened next was totally unexpected. It was Friday afternoon, and Georgina, my mother-in-law, was about to arrive. We prepared the guest room with everything she might need and some stuff she likes, hoping it would keep her from causing drama. Around noon, the doorbell rang. Kimberly, busy in the kitchen, called out, "I think she's here, Kenny. Can you get the door, please?" I prepared myself and opened the door. Standing there was a woman with a not-so-friendly expression. It wasn't a smile, it looked more like a scowl. My mother-in-law, I greeted her. "Hello, Kenneth. Hi there. How was your trip? Are you doing okay?" I welcomed her inside, taking her stuff and doing all the host stuff without being too pushy. But I could feel my irritation building as she started her never-ending complaints. "Wow, Kenneth, the patio looks amazing. Did you do this?" "Yeah, it looks absolutely lovely. I'll need to snap some photos soon." "Oh, could you take those bags upstairs to my room, dear? And could you also make me a coffee? I'd like a caramel macchiato with whipped cream, please." Did she think this was a Starbucks? If you've ever seen A Streetcar Named Desire, you might get an idea of what Georgina was like. She acted just like Blanche, all high and mighty with a touch of fake innocence. She strutted around like she was a gift to the world. I can't stand that kind of arrogance, especially when she's being rude. Just then, Kimberly came out of the kitchen to greet her mom. "You look stunning." "Oh, come on, Kimberly, do I? You're just saying that." "Well, you do look great. It's this new diet I'm on. You should try it. You could use it, sweetheart. But not this weekend. This weekend is for relaxing. That's why I ordered my caramel macchiato. Speaking of which, Kenneth, when's my coffee going to be ready? I'm thirsty. I need something to drink right now. I might faint." See what I have to deal with. After enjoying a delicious lunch prepared by my wonderful wife, I had to quickly Google how to make a caramel macchiato. Georgina made it her mission to point out every little flaw in the meal, followed by a quick, "It's fine. Don't worry too much" to soften the blow. But she made sure to remind us to be extra careful next time to avoid making those silly mistakes, as she called them. She seemed to enjoy talking down to us, and while I could handle it, I could see it was getting to Kimberly. I mean, how could she not be bothered? That was her mom, after all, and Kimberly didn't have a mean bone in her body. I couldn't say the same for myself, though. I'm the type who likes to get revenge when I can. Later in the afternoon, Georgina went on and on about how much she loved the house. Well, she had a unique way of expressing her love for it. Sure, my time in Bora Bora was nice, but Zanzibar was even better. The scenery was stunning and the people were lovely. This vacation won't be as fancy as those, but it's still a vacation. Maybe it'll humble me a bit, since I've been to so many fancy places. It'll be a nice change of pace, I guess. I'll be honest, I zoned out of the conversation many, many times, and whenever I checked back in, it was still going on. Georgina had a way of making things drag on longer than they needed to. Anyway, we spent the afternoon chatting, mostly Kimberly and Georgina. I was just there, like a decoration, making sure Kimberly was comfortable. Every now and then, I'd chime in to make it seem like I was paying attention. Around 4 p.m. that evening, things started to get a bit weird. You know, Kimberly, I've been complimenting your house ever since I got here, and I have to say, it's stunning. Thanks, Mom. We've been working hard to make it nice, and Kenny and I spent a lot of time getting ready for your visit. It's so good that I can't keep this beauty to myself. What do you mean, Mom? What are you saying? Well, on my trips to places like Cancun, Fiji, or India, I always bring along some friends or family. I don't like traveling alone, especially as I'm getting older. It's become a bit of a tradition for me to have companions like Ursula or Justine. Oh, that sounds nice. How are they? It's been a while since we talked. Funny you ask, because they're actually on their way here now. You can catch up with them yourself. Kimberly nearly chokes on her coffee at this unexpected news. I would have done a spit take too if I had anything in my mouth, because I was shocked at what she just said. But I kept my cool and managed to say, Kim, let's go to the kitchen, now. We headed to the kitchen to talk about this bombshell. Please tell me she's joking, babe. I don't think she's joking, but you only told me she was coming. We only prepped for one person. I'm just as surprised as you are, babe. I didn't know anything until now, just like you. I started pacing in the kitchen. So what do? I guess we'll have to tell her we only prepped for one person, and maybe we can put the girls up in a hotel. They can come over during the day to hang out with Mom. I sighed in frustration. This was also inconvenient, wasn't it? Note the sarcasm. As much as I cared about Ursula and Justine, my aunt-in-law and sister-in-law, I wasn't keen on entertaining them all weekend. They were a bit like their mother, not as bad, but having them all around would be chaotic. We argued about it until Georgina herself showed up in the kitchen. What's the problem? I think it's a nice idea to have other family members join us for the weekend. She started pouting, and strangely, it had the same effect on Kimberly as Kimberly's pouting had on me. When she wanted to, Georgina could get her way with those puppy dog eyes. I guess Kimberly inherited that skill from her mom. Oh no, Mom, please don't be upset. It was a nice thought, but we just can't handle this sudden change, especially on such short notice. Kenny and I were thinking of putting Ursula and Justine up in a nearby hotel, and they can come over during the day. Angeline is also coming with them. So you want 4 extra people in the house? I'm sorry, Georgina, but that's not going to work. Oh, Kenny dear, don't be such a stick in the mud. Jolene has to come. She hasn't been part of the tradition, and she really wants to join in. Plus, she's your younger sister-in-law. We have to make room for her. And honestly, you're not even considered part of our real family, so it makes sense for you to leave and for the girls to stay. It's just for a couple of days after all. Mom, how can you say that? Kenny is our real family. Is he though? You're putting him above your actual sisters. That's not what I meant, Mom. The main issue is space. We're worried there won't be enough room for everyone. I'm glad you brought that up because I've come up with a solution that will please everyone. Okay, let's hear it. Okay, so here's my idea. Ursula and I can share the bed in the guest room since it's big enough, and Jolene can sleep in Kimberly's bed. There was silence. I was completely lost. I looked at my wife, and she seemed just as confused. Finally, I asked, so you want 3 people to sleep in one bed? That's uncomfortable and inappropriate, don't you think? Yeah, Mom, we're adults now. It's not appropriate for me, my husband, and my sister to share a bed. Aha, I knew you'd say that, which is why I think it's best if Kenneth doesn't stay here during this time. Again, silence. At that moment, I think she finally lost it. So you want me to leave my own house? Kenny dear, don't call me that. Kenneth, don't talk to me like that. Kimberly, are you going to let him speak to me like that? Look, I don't appreciate you coming into my house and making last-minute demands. It's not fair. If you wanted a girls' trip, that would have been fine if you planned it in advance. Why didn't you just tell us what you wanted? And saying I'm not your real family was rude. I didn't think you'd get so upset now. Honestly, you're acting childish, don't you think, Kim? I don't know what to say, Mom. I don't think it's fair. Oh, you dumb people and your sensitivity. I didn't do this on purpose. It must have just slipped my mind. I'm sure you understand. I didn't quite understand, but when I looked at my wife, she was silently pleading with me. I caved in, feeling frustrated, and said, Georgina, better communication would have been appreciated. As I said earlier, I wouldn't have minded if you ladies wanted a girls' trip for the weekend. I could have gone on a trip with the guys or worked at the orphanage. But springing this on us isn't fair. We're adults, even if you see us as your kids. You're a guest in our home, and you need to respect that. I stayed calm and politely pointed out her mistake. She scoffed, walked around, and even laughed at times, seemingly trying to avoid the embarrassment of being confronted by her sister-in-law. Nevertheless, I stood my ground. You want to have a girls' trip and have everyone here for the weekend. Fine, you want me out of the house. That's fine too, but I'll be back after the weekend. With that, I kissed my wife on the cheek and headed to our room. Kimberly tried to reason with her mother, telling her that what she did wasn't okay and that she seriously upset me. But Georgina just laughed it off, treating me like I was overreacting. I packed some clothes in a duffel bag and left. I booked a hotel room online and headed there, but not before stopping by the orphanage where I regularly volunteered. As I mentioned before, the orphanage is called Open Arms, and I love working there. But dealing with unruly and disobedient toddlers, children, and teenagers is no easy task. As I spent the evening playing and helping out the children, I couldn't shake off the thought of how to get back at Georgina. I'm not evil, or at least I don't think I am, but I do believe in teaching people a lesson when they deserve it. I guess that's why I'm good at my job. I had a good connection with the kids, showing them both love and discipline so they wouldn't take advantage of me. We got along well, to the point where some of them could tell something was bothering me. Ken, is everything okay? One of them asked. Yeah, everything's fine, I said, apologizing for losing my cool. I explained the situation to him in simple terms. He was just a kid, after all. But surprisingly, he understood and even sympathized with me. With all due respect, Ken, your mother-in-law is crazy. Tell me about it, I replied. You've got to get back at her somehow, just to teach her a lesson, right? But how? We thought about it for a while, but I couldn't come up with anything. Then Maverick said something that changed everything. We could help. What do you mean? We could help. If you take a handful of us kids and bring us to your house, we could ruin her weekend. I thought about it, and then it clicked. Maverick, true to his name, was an evil genius. It was a perfect plan. The kids would get a fun weekend away, and I could get back at my mother-in-law for disrespecting me. We made plans like two evil geniuses plotting world domination and waited until the next day to put our revenge into action. The next day, Saturday, went like this. Kimberly answered the doorbell and was surprised to see Maverick and a few other kids. Why, hello, Kimberly, Kenny. Oh, Maverick, hello, how are you? Then she noticed the other kids and looked confused. What's going on, babe? Oh, nothing. I thought I'd bring the kids along to join in Georgina's lovely vacation, I said as I walked into the room, followed by 5 kids aged 6 to 10. They were known as the rowdiest bunch, but they could be sweet when they wanted to be. It was when they felt disrespected that they'd let loose. I promised them ice cream if they caused chaos. Hello, Kenneth, how are you? Oh, who are these lovely children? Good morning, Georgina. I hope you're all well. I see the rest of the gang made it. Hey, Kenneth, how are you? I'm well, thank you. Who are these kids? Oh, these children. They're from the orphanage. Yes, we can see that, but why are they here? Good question. Maverick, would you like to answer that? Well, Ken told us about the lovely vacation you were having in his home, and we've never been on a vacation, so he invited us over to join in. The in-laws, who were sipping mimosas and eating croissants in the living area, gasped in horror and shared looks of disbelief. Some of the kids started grabbing food from the table, bacon, pancakes, orange juice, causing chaos. Georgina stood up and pulled me aside. What's the meaning of this? Just as Maverick said, I wanted the kids to have their own little vacation. I'm sure you wouldn't mind. How can you bring all these kids into the house? This is too much, and someone named Maverick is bound to cause trouble. This was supposed to be a relaxing weekend for me and the girls, you know this. Oh well, I'm sure you wouldn't mind. It's only for a couple of days after all. Listen, I know you're upset. No, you listen here, Georgina. I'm tired of you acting like you own the place. If you want to stay here for a vacation, that's fine, but the kids are staying too. They deserve to enjoy just as much as you do. So maybe next time you'll remember it's not nice to inconvenience others. And with that, I didn't give her a chance to respond. I walked back into the living room to see the chaos unfold. The little girl, don't you dare touch that. That's an expensive designer bag. Stop it. You little troublemakers are causing chaos. Is this what vacations are normally like? Because if so, count me out. The ladies were being harassed by the unruly children, causing chaos. You might wonder how Kimberly felt. She was in the corner snickering. She found it funny too. You might also wonder how I felt watching my house get torn apart. It was worth it to see the looks on my in-laws' faces. I didn't mind cleaning up. Maverick promised they'd help. I just wanted to witness the chaos as the prim older ladies dealt with the chaotic children. Well, everything seems in order. I'll be on my way. I'll pick up the kids tomorrow or Monday. Cheerio. And with that, I left, laughing in my hotel room. I called Kimberly and told her the kids weren't meant to bother her, just the snobby ladies. If she needed a break, she could stay with me. That day was one of the best of my life. Hey, isn't today our honeymoon, when we're supposed to go on a trip together? Why did you rip up my passport just as we were getting ready to go? I couldn't believe what my husband had done. He ripped my passport without asking, looking really pleased with himself. It made me so mad. I never wanted to go on this trip with you. I was always going to go with my mom instead. Before we got married, I felt some tension, but I didn't realize how messed up things were between my husband and his mom. Nobody in my friend group ever talked about their mother-in-law taking over their honeymoon. I was shocked and mad about this crazy situation, but mostly, I felt super weirded out. I started to question if marrying him was a big mistake. As he pulled out scissors and started cutting up my passport, I saw my mother-in-law grinning like crazy and knew I had to escape from there fast. It was totally unexpected, but I had just the right proof to take them both down. My name's Sarah. I'm 29 and been working for 7 years. Recently, my boyfriend of 4 years popped the question I've been waiting for. Now, I'm knee-deep in planning our wedding and honeymoon. I met my husband after I started working. I've always been more on the quiet side, and although I had a boyfriend in college, things just didn't work out. After that, I didn't really date anyone seriously for a while. So when I started working, it was a big surprise to find myself getting married before many of my colleagues. I think I was even more shocked than anyone else. My husband was a senior at the company when I first joined, and he was always there to help me when I struggled with new tasks. Even though the only guy I dated before him was a classmate, there was something different about someone who was 5 years older. I found him reliable and trustworthy. When he asked me out on our first date, I was ecstatic. I still hold dear the dolphin figurine we bought at the aquarium during that date. When he mentioned wanting to date with marriage in mind, I felt like I was on cloud 9. We went on many dates, and he proposed to me at that same aquarium where we had our first date. Could I really be this happy? That night, I was so excited that I couldn't sleep, and I still remember that feeling vividly. With my mind still filled with happiness, we quickly decided to visit his parents' home the next week. But during the visit, I started feeling unsure about our marriage. My father-in-law was nice, but my mother-in-law didn't seem to like me much. She even said, "You could have married someone more impressive than this ordinary girl." Hearing that made me doubt our future together and feel really anxious. But I figured everyone gets nervous before their wedding, right? So I pretended everything was okay and continued planning for the wedding. Then one day, while talking about our life after marriage, both my husband and his mom just assumed I'd quit my job. Even though I used to think quitting work after getting married was nice, I didn't see it as an option now. Looking back, I think my worries about marriage stopped me from considering leaving my job, where I felt safe. Even though my mother-in-law kept suggesting I quit, I decided to keep working at the same company as my husband, ignoring her. During our wedding planning, we didn't see eye to eye on when to officially register our marriage. He wanted to do it sooner, but we decided to go with his choice and did it shortly after. The process was pretty ordinary, but knowing we were officially married made me really happy. We talked about having a small, cozy wedding, but it seems he mentioned this to his mom. She called the next day. "You're planning a small wedding for Edward. Please don't make decisions without considering everyone's opinion. The wedding should be big and fancy. I'll make sure it's what Edward wants. And please keep your guest list short. Just your parents and close friends. Your friends wouldn't add much excitement to the wedding anyway. I was overwhelmed with all the opinions flying around about the venue and guest list. It was frustrating that my soon-to-be mother-in-law thought she could control everything. But I didn't want to argue with her. Even though I had a lot to say, I kept quiet, thinking maybe this was just how weddings went. I ended up inviting only my parents and close friends, like she wanted. But her interference didn't stop there. She had something to say about everything: the schedule, entertainment, decorations, and food. If we followed all her suggestions, we'd blow our budget. At first, Edward's family agreed to split the wedding costs with us. But then that changed. Suddenly, it was all about the bride's family footing the bill, and we were way over budget. I had to cover all the extra expenses she wanted, so the wedding turned into this flashy event, completely different from the simple ceremony I had envisioned. I tried to make some changes secretly to save money, but she found out and scolded me, saying it looked cheap because I didn't listen to her. After the wedding, I hoped for some distance from my mother-in-law, but then my husband dropped a bombshell. I was tired of her meddling in the wedding plans, and despite knowing I wanted space from her, he insisted we move in with her. Our new place, which we'd already arranged, was suddenly canceled without my knowledge. All our stuff was redirected to my husband's family home. I was speechless, shocked that everything was decided without asking me. I handled all the wedding planning by myself. Even when I warned Edward about going over budget if we followed all of his mom's requests, he ignored me. My anxiety, which was already high, skyrocketed. We had planned to go on a honeymoon abroad after the wedding. It was a dream destination for me, and the thought of it felt unreal. But my growing discomfort with Edward's strange behavior and the idea of living with my mother-in-law when we got back put a damper on my excitement. Just like with the wedding planning, Edward wasn't very helpful with organizing our honeymoon. It was odd that he took charge of booking flights and hotels. I assumed he picked a romantic place for our honeymoon, and I was thrilled. Even though I ended up paying for everything, I was just happy he was pitching in, given all the excitement before the wedding. But I didn't realize this was a sign of things to come. Finally, the wedding was over, and amidst the chaos, our honeymoon day arrived. Despite some lingering doubts about the wedding and moving in with his mom, I was determined to enjoy the trip with Edward. But as I woke up in the middle of the night to get ready for our flight, Edward dropped a bombshell like it was no big deal. "Sarah, I'm going with my mom instead." As I was checking our luggage, I couldn't believe what Edward had just said. "What? What do you mean? This is our honeymoon, not just any trip. Why would your mom be coming? And we only booked for two for the flights and hotel." I was shocked, trying to make sense of it all when Edward dropped another bombshell. "I never said I was going on this trip with you, did I? Don't be ridiculous. I'm going with my mom. A trip with her is more important than our honeymoon. It's a thank you trip for all she's done for me. You stay here and clean the house from top to bottom." With that, Edward started tearing up my passport. I couldn't believe it, unable to speak, just watching as he destroyed it. Right then, my fully dressed mother-in-law barged into the room without even knocking. "Edward, are you ready?" Seeing her, Edward's face lit up. "Yeah, we're all set. Finally, we can go on this trip without any interruptions." They both chuckled, leaving me feeling disgusted. It hit me then. I was about to marry a nightmare. I'd been wondering how to get along with my mother-in-law, but this was beyond anything I could have imagined. I realized I'd made a huge mistake from the very beginning. "I see now what kind of people you both are," I couldn't hold back. But they just laughed it off as if my words were meaningless. They left together, leaving me feeling betrayed. I had been happy thinking Edward was helping with the honeymoon, but it was just a setup for him to go with his mother. He'd been planning it all along, booking everything under her name and leaving me to foot the bill. The betrayal stung, but my anger outweighed my sadness. The wedding and honeymoon I had always dreamed of were supposed to be unforgettable moments with the love of my life. But they were ruined by my mother-in-law and husband. It felt surreal. At first, I couldn't believe it was happening. But soon, I realized I needed to take action fast. I had to get a divorce. Interestingly, I had something that could help me. I had started recording to capture memories of the most important events in my life. My wedding and honeymoon. Since the wedding preparations, I had been recording various moments on audio. What began as a way to cherish memories slowly turned into documenting my mother-in-law's hurtful actions and harassment. Sometimes I thought about stopping because I figured I'd never listen to these recordings again. But it's ironic how valuable they turned out to be. Just days after moving in, I found myself repacking my things. It didn't take long since I hadn't unpacked much. I couldn't help but wonder if my husband and his mother were already at the airport. The thought made me furious, so I tried to push it aside. Even though I'd only been there briefly, I wanted to erase any trace of myself from that house. So I cleaned thoroughly everywhere I'd been. While tidying the living room, I stumbled upon something shocking. Evidence that my husband was stealing money from his company. In his role overseeing sales, he was reporting lower earnings to the company and keeping the extra cash for himself. And it seemed his mother was involved too. She had detailed notes of the actual sales, the money he pocketed, and even listed all the luxury items he bought her with the stolen money. It was a lot. I couldn't believe they'd left such evidence out in the open. Finding out about my husband's wrongdoing left me horrified. I realized the seriousness of the situation. For a moment, I thought about trying to smooth things over since I also worked at the company. But then I thought, why should I help someone who ditched me for a honeymoon with his mother? So, armed with evidence of the embezzlement, I went to the company. Even though they were supposed to be on their honeymoon, my colleagues were shocked to see me in the office. As everyone bombarded me with questions about why I was at work instead of on my honeymoon, I decided I had nothing to hide. I explained that my husband and mother-in-law had gone on the honeymoon instead, that my passport was destroyed, and that I had paid for the entire trip. My colleagues, bosses, and superiors were shocked and furious on my behalf. I thanked them for their concern and headed to the executive area of the company. What my colleagues didn't know was that one of the top executives at the company is my uncle. I never mentioned this to anyone, not even my husband or mother-in-law. I didn't want people to think I got the job because of family connections, so I applied and secured the position based on my own merit. Since my uncle isn't involved in human resources, I asked him not to reveal our relationship before the orientation. Though surprised, he respected my decision and assured me that we would maintain a professional relationship at work. As a child, my uncle treated me like his own, showering me with love and indulging my wishes. We even went on trips together when I was younger. Despite my parents scolding me for asking him to buy me things, he adored me. Since joining the company, our paths rarely crossed except for a brief exchange during orientation. When I visited his office, my uncle's warm smile quickly faded as he sensed something was wrong. "Why are you here? Weren't you supposed to be on your honeymoon?" Seeing his familiar face, I couldn't hold back my tears. Through sobs, I told him everything that had happened. He was visibly furious, a side of him I had never seen before. I explained my husband's embezzlement and handed over the evidence. My uncle promised to hold a board meeting immediately to address the situation. After promising to address the situation, my uncle asked about my plans for the day. When I mentioned heading home, he suggested we grab some food together before he dropped me off. Despite the unbelievable betrayal I had experienced, I felt genuinely grateful for the warm-hearted people in my life who cared for me. A week later, when my husband and mother-in-law returned from what was supposed to be our honeymoon, I received an immediate call. My husband was furious that I hadn't picked them up from the airport or cleaned the house as instructed. He demanded to know where I was. With the support of my uncle and parents, I had already hired a top-notch divorce lawyer, and the process was underway. Without giving my husband a chance to speak, I said firmly, "You two are loud and annoying. I don't want to hear your voices anymore. Why would I pick up someone I'm divorcing? And why would I follow your orders to clean?" He was momentarily stunned but quickly resumed his ranting. "Do you think it's okay to speak to me like that? I did you a favor by marrying you. If I divorce you, you'll never find someone else. My mom's furious too. If you come back now and cook for us, I might forgive you. We're tired of foreign food. Make us some traditional meals." His words were shocking. After his scheme with the passport and going on a trip with his mother, I saw his true colors. It dawned on me that I had never truly known him. I had been reflecting on this realization for the past few days. "I've already consulted a lawyer about our divorce. Please discuss any related matters with them." "Divorce? What are you talking about? We're not getting a divorce." I heard his mother in the background, shouting for him to hand her the phone and calling me names. "Well, do as you please. By the way, I informed the company about your embezzlement. I think I'll be calling you in soon." Maybe you should get a lawyer too. Bye. I sensed his panic on the other end, but it wasn't my problem anymore. He kept calling, so I just blocked his number. My uncle knew our honeymoon dates, so right after our call, the company summoned my husband. With the evidence I provided, they verified the information and confirmed the discrepancies in the payments. It turned out the amount my husband embezzled was huge. In front of the company's executives, my husband desperately tried to defend himself. He made up a story claiming I was the real embezzler and he had tried to stop me. At that point, my uncle couldn't hold back and shouted, "My niece would never do such a thing. We've confirmed that you and your mother committed the embezzlement. You're lucky we haven't involved the police yet." Realizing his scheme had unraveled and that I had connections in senior management, my husband looked defeated. That day, I went to the company to return the wedding gifts to my colleagues. Despite our marriage ending so soon after the wedding, they all refused to take them back, saying they were given with heartfelt blessings. Surrounded by their warmth, my husband approached me, looking desperate. "Why didn't you tell me about your family connection? I'm sorry, truly. Can we start over? Can you ask your uncle to let me stay in the company and make the embezzlement charges disappear?" Disgusted, I replied. "Do you even hear yourself? Are you serious? Divorce is the only way forward now. Reflect on your actions and face the consequences." After I pushed him away, my colleagues intervened and called security, who removed him from the premises. He was immediately fired. As for the embezzlement, the company is pursuing damages from him. Upon learning about the situation, my mother-in-law attempted to contact my family repeatedly. However, after consulting my sensible father-in-law, the calls ceased. I had always wondered why my father-in-law had agreed to our honeymoon, but when he came to apologize later, admitting his mistake, it became clear. He had believed my mother-in-law was going on a domestic trip with her friends. He was looking forward to a peaceful week without her constant demands and nagging about shopping and dining out, hoping for a brief respite. When I returned home after learning about the ridiculous actions of my husband and mother-in-law, my father-in-law agreed that I should go back to my parents' home and helped me pack. Emotions were running high, and without much discussion, I left for my family home. I knew my father-in-law, being genuine, kind, and rational, would have stopped everything if he had known. He was the only reasonable person I could trust in that house. Although I was the victim, it was incredibly embarrassing to think my honeymoon had been hijacked by my mother-in-law. I even considered resigning from my job. My parents advised me to take a break from work for a while. However, my uncle suggested that working might help distract me, and he discussed it with the CEO. They arranged for me to be transferred to a branch office. The divorce process with my husband went surprisingly smoothly, thanks to an excellent lawyer. However, I later found out my father-in-law was involved. When we were planning our wedding and discussing expenses, it turned out my husband had almost no savings. My in-laws were just an average working-class family. With my mother-in-law's spending habits, they had little savings, as my father-in-law mentioned with a wry smile. The alimony I received considering our short marriage was surprisingly substantial. Shockingly, my father-in-law sold the family home to cover it. Their home wasn't in a city center, but in a close-knit community. When we got married, my mother-in-law invited the neighbors. They witnessed me returning to the family home on the day I was supposed to be leaving for our honeymoon, luggage in hand. With the neighborhood's penchant for gossip, rumors spread like wildfire. Over time, these rumors became exaggerated to the point where living in that area became unbearable. Initially, my mother-in-law, always concerned about appearances, approved of our marriage because both my husband and I worked for prestigious companies. Having her son and daughter-in-law working for a major company was a status symbol for her. However, with rumors swirling due to her actions, she likely couldn't bear to stay in that house. Additionally, my father-in-law probably felt responsible for covering the damages from my husband's embezzlement. While I harbor nothing but disdain for both my husband and mother-in-law, I genuinely feel sorry for my father-in-law. After being fired and ordered to pay damages, my husband apparently suffered a mental breakdown. Unable to work, he's been moping around in a small apartment he moved to. Seeing her son so downcast, my mother-in-law also became reclusive, as my father-in-law told me. In fact, my father-in-law, fed up with my mother-in-law, was considering divorce as he didn't want to spend his later years with her. He asked if I could introduce him to the lawyer I had used. I immediately contacted my uncle, who got in touch with the lawyer. It might take some time, but I hope my father-in-law can live the life he wishes. Thanks to the intervention of the company's CEO and my uncle, I was transferred to a branch office where I'm surrounded by supportive colleagues and superiors. I'm eternally grateful to my uncle. The only regret I have is missing out on the country we plan to visit for our honeymoon. Once things settled down, I hope to take a relaxed trip abroad. The noise of Alex's voice cut through the clinking of dishes like a sharp knife. Alara, bring me some tea now. I paused, my hand in soapy water. Wait, I'm doing the dishes. What? His voice was full of disbelief and impatience. Stop that and bring me the tea quickly. Can't you follow simple orders? But, I started, but he cut me off. What a useless wife you are. Make me some sweet coffee, please. It was Mrs. Whitmore, my mother-in-law, speaking from the living room. She was eating a slice of cake she'd taken from the fridge, her eyes glinting with spite. I sighed, looking at the pile of dishes. There are so many. Leave them for later. Just do what we say, useless wife. Alex's words hit like a whip, each one stinging. I was Alara, a 28-year-old working mother feeling trapped in a life that felt more like a prison than a home. I got married at 23, hoping for love and companionship. Instead, I found myself stuck with Alex and his demanding mother. Our 4-year-old son was my only source of joy in a bleak world. We lived in Alex's parents' house, a decision I had to accept under the pretense of taking care of Mrs. Whitmore after my father-in-law passed away. At first, I felt sorry for her, thinking she was grieving, but soon I realized I was just a pawn in her cruel game of domestic control. No matter how much I cooked, cleaned, or worked, it was never enough. My efforts were always met with scorn. My meals were either left untouched or harshly criticized. The stir-fry is so half-hearted, Mrs. Whitmore would sneer. Cook it properly from scratch. I'm busy and can only make simple things, I'd say, trying to sound calm. That's why I hate backtalk from a daughter-in-law, she'd snap. Cook from scratch. Why don't you cook then? You're a good cook, right? I dared to ask once, immediately regretting it. Why would I do housework when you're here? Her response was cold and dismissive. Are you out of your mind? Their cruelty got worse over time. They stopped talking to me altogether, as if I were a ghost in my own home. My presence, once just unappreciated, now felt completely invisible. 5 years passed in a suffocating atmosphere. Alex and I turned 35 and 33, respectively. Our son grew up, but the heavy atmosphere in the house didn't change. My mother-in-law, now 63, seemed to enjoy my unhappiness. One evening, as I walked home from work, I felt a heavy realization sink in. My life seemed meaningless. To them, I was like a shadow, unnoticed and ignored. The only person who seemed to see me was my son. The idea of losing even that little bit of recognition was too much to bear. When I got home, I started cooking right away, trying to push away the sadness. I made mapo tofu, fried chicken, and a stir-fry with bell peppers and pork, hoping to make our dinner feel normal. Bring me the mayo, Alex suddenly commanded, breaking his long silence. Sure, here you are, I replied, handing him the mayonnaise. His first words to me in ages weren't thankful or conversational, just another command. It was too much, the final straw. I couldn't tolerate it anymore. The evening got worse when Mrs. Whitmore said, "Clean the toilet." What? Right now? I couldn't believe it. Yes, right now, she insisted, her voice full of bitterness. I couldn't hold back my frustration. Don't say such things while we're eating. It's disgusting, just like your heart. She hissed, and our argument quickly escalated, with Alex joining in, demanding. I apologized to his mother, but stood my ground for the first time in years. The conflict reached its peak, and I made a decision. I needed to get out of this toxic situation, for my son's sake as well as my own. I went to my room determined. I downloaded divorce papers, filled them out, and handed them to Alex. He was shocked, but I felt nothing but determination. I'm filing these, I said firmly. As I faced my husband's surprised expression, I realized I had finally stepped out of the shadows. It was time to take control of my life. In the days after I declared my intention to divorce, there were a lot of angry looks and hurtful words, but in the middle of it all, I felt a strange sense of freedom. One evening, as I served dinner, Mrs. Whitmore looked at the meal with disgust. You call this food? Even a child cooks better. I held back my frustration, focusing on my son's smile. Eat up, sweetheart. I made your favorite tonight. Alex jumped in, sarcastic. Oh, now suddenly you're the perfect mother, huh? What a joke. I could feel anger rising, but I stayed calm. I'm just trying to make a nice dinner for our son. Mrs. Whitmore scoffed. Don't act like you're better than us. You're just a nuisance in this house. The tension at the table was thick. Alex's insults kept coming. So, Alara, have you even thought about how you'll manage after the divorce? You can barely handle running a household, let alone your own life. I looked him in the eye. I've been supporting this family for years. I'm not worried about taking care of myself and our son. His smirk faded slightly, a hint of unease crossing his face. Mrs. Whitmore quickly stepped in. Don't be ridiculous. You rely on us more than we rely on you. The conversation shifted to money, a topic they usually avoided. You know, without my paycheck, this household would struggle. I said more to myself than to them. Mrs. Whitmore scoffed. We'll manage. We don't need your charity. But Alex's silence said it all. He knew the truth. Without my income, they would be in trouble. In the following days, their behavior became more unpredictable. Mrs. Whitmore would switch between trying to persuade me to stay and hurling insults when I resisted. Alex, meanwhile, seemed lost, his confident demeanor fading as the reality of his financial reliance on me sank in. One afternoon, I overheard a conversation between them that sent shivers down my spine. Leaving her is not an option, Alex whispered angrily. We rely on her money. Mrs. Whitmore's response was chillingly calculated. Don't fret, I have a plan. We'll make her life so miserable she won't even think about leaving. Hearing their true intentions shocked me. They didn't care about me or our son. It was all about control and money. That night, lying in bed, a plan began to form. If they wanted a fight, they would get one. But not with arguments. I would hit them where it hurt most. Their pride and their wallets. The next morning, I set my plan in motion. I contacted a lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman. I want a divorce, and I want to ensure they don't get more than they deserve, I told her. She nodded firmly. We'll make sure of that. You've been the main provider, right? We'll use that. With each passing day, my determination only grew stronger. I started keeping records of everything. The insults, the financial tricks, even the smallest annoyances. It was time to make them face the music. They needed to see the consequences of their actions. As I gathered evidence, I felt a sense of strength. For the first time in years, I felt like I had control over my life. The shadows of disrespect were fading away, and in their place, a new beginning was emerging. As the divorce process started, the tension at home grew worse. But with each passing day, my fear faded, replaced by determination. One evening, Mrs. Whitmore tried a different approach. Alara dear, why don't we forget all this unpleasantness? You know we're family, she said, but her words were dripping with insincerity. I held her gaze steady. Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me. Alex, who had been silent, scoffed. Oh, now you're the victim. You're not as innocent as you act. I felt anger rising, but I stayed calm. I'm not pretending anything, Alex. I'm just not willing to be your punching bag anymore. The conversation shifted to money, as it often did. You think you can just take our son and go? How will you support him? Alex challenged. I smiled confidently. I've been supporting this family for years. I'll manage. Mrs. Whitmore's sneer twisted into her face. You're nothing without us. You'll come begging to return. But their words didn't affect me anymore. I knew my value and the truth. The next day, I met with my lawyer again. She outlined the plan clearly. We'll expose their financial dependence on you. It'll be crucial in the custody battle and dividing assets. I nodded, feeling validated. The law was backing me, and I was ready to stand up for myself. At home, the tension reached its peak. Mrs. Whitmore's attempts to undermine me became more desperate. You think you're clever, she spat one evening, but you're just abandoning your family. I looked her straight in the eye. No, I'm finally standing up for myself. Alex joined in, his voice full of anger. You'll regret this. You can't survive without me. But I wasn't afraid of his threats anymore. As days passed, I prepared for the court battle. I gathered financial documents, recorded their hurtful words, and collected evidence of their neglect. One afternoon, as I sorted through my papers, my son came to me. Mom, are we going to be okay? His voice was small and uncertain. I pulled him close, feeling a surge of protectiveness. Yes, sweetheart, we're going to be just fine. We're leaving this place and starting a new happy life. Just you and me. His arms tightened around me, and in that moment, I knew I was doing the right thing. I was fighting for my son's future, not just for myself. The day of the court hearing approached, bringing a sense of impending freedom. I was ready to confront Alex and Mrs. Whitmore, to put an end to their control and abuse. I was ready to take back my life and give my son the peace and happiness he deserved. It was time for justice, and I was determined to see it through. The day of the court hearing arrived, a day I had been dreading yet eagerly awaiting. Sitting across from Alex and Mrs. Whitmore in the courtroom, I felt a surreal mix of emotions. This was the moment of change. The proceedings began formally. Alex's lawyer painted him as a devoted husband and father, unfairly accused. Mrs. Whitmore portrayed herself as a grieving mother-in-law, mistreated by an ungrateful daughter-in-law. But their act was transparent, their lies obvious. When it was my turn to speak, I spoke clearly, my voice steady. I have been the only one working to support this family for years. My husband's unemployment and his mother's manipulation have caused constant strain. Alex interrupted, pretending to be hurt. Alara, how can you say these things? I turned to him, my gaze firm. Support isn't just words, Alex. It's about actions, and your actions have been selfish and cruel. The judge listened as I presented my evidence. Financial documents, recordings of their verbal abuse, testimonies from neighbors who had witnessed their behavior. The truth was clear. As the evidence piled up, Alex's facade crumbled. Mrs. Whitmore's calm demeanor cracked, revealing her true nature. The courtroom fell silent, tension thick in the air. Then came the bombshell that sealed their fate. My lawyer presented evidence, photographs and documents proving Alex's infidelity and Mrs. Whitmore's affair with a neighbor, Mr. Harwood. The courtroom buzzed as the images were shown, revealing their deceit for all to see. Alex paled, his eyes wide with shock. Mrs. Whitmore's anger twisted her expression, her hands shaking. You violated our privacy, she shrieked, her voice piercing. I met her gaze calmly. No, I exposed the truth, a truth you both tried to hide for too long. The judge called for order, but the damage was done. Their credibility crumbled, their lies laid bare. As the hearing ended, the judge's decision was clear. I was granted full custody of our son, and assets were divided fairly. Alex and Mrs. Whitmore were left with nothing but their ruined reputations. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt like a burden had been lifted. The years of manipulation and abuse were finally behind me. I had stood up to them and won. But the best moment was when my son ran into my arms outside, his face beaming with relief. We did it, Mom, he said happily. Yes, we did, I replied, hugging him tightly. We're free now. This is just the beginning for us. As we walked away together, I knew this victory wasn't just for me. It was for anyone who's ever felt small or powerless. It was for truth and fairness. It was the start of a new chapter, one filled with hope and a better future. The aftermath of the court ruling was swift and chaotic. News of Alex and Mrs. Whitmore's deceit spread quickly, staining their reputations in our small community. They could no longer hide behind their facade of respectability. In the days after the verdict, I focused on rebuilding my life with my son, but I couldn't ignore the satisfaction of knowing they were facing the consequences. One evening, while preparing dinner, I had an unexpected visitor, Mrs. Harwood, Mr. Harwood's wife, her eyes filled with tears. Alara, I heard everything. I can't believe what Sylvia, Mrs. Whitmore, did, she said, her voice trembling with pain. I invited her in, offering a cup of tea. As we sat at the kitchen table, she poured out her heartache. I trusted her as a neighbor, as a friend, and to think she was having an affair with my husband. I listened, offering comfort. It was clear Mrs. Whitmore's actions had caused more damage than she anticipated. The next day, I ran into Alex in town. He looked defeated, a shadow of his former self, his arrogance gone. I paused, facing him. What's left to say, Alex? He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my gaze. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't realize how much I relied on you, on your strength. His apology, though belated, marked a shift in power. He had lost everything. His pride, his home, his family. And in that loss, he finally acknowledged his mistakes. But it was Mrs. Whitmore who faced the harshest consequences. Her affair with Mr. Harwood had not only tarnished her reputation, but also led to legal troubles. Mrs. Harwood had filed for divorce and was suing her for alienation of affection. I heard about Mrs. Whitmore's downfall through whispers and rumors from neighbors, painting a picture of a woman brought down by her own actions. She became an outcast, rejected by those she once called friends. One afternoon, I spotted her at the grocery store, her demeanor defeated as she hurried through the aisles. Our paths crossed, and our eyes met briefly. The resentment and defeat in her gaze were clear. "You did this to me," she muttered as she passed by. I watched her go, feeling a mix of pity and vindication. "No, Sylvia, you did this to yourself," I whispered to myself. The tables had turned, and the consequences of their choices were now unavoidable. Alex and Mrs. Whitmore were facing the consequences of their years of deceit and manipulation. As I saw them struggle, I understood that the greatest revenge was living well, free from their toxicity. Refocusing on my son and our new life, I realized this wasn't just about revenge. It was about freedom, breaking away from abuse and control. Looking ahead, I knew the best was yet to come.
"Please leave. It's too crowded in here," Jennifer said with a laugh. Her smile was smug and unsettling, the worst I had ever seen. I stood there, shocked, as Jennifer repeated herself. I didn't understand why I had to leave my own house. "This is my house, you know. What are you talking about?" I asked. "I know this house is in Daniel's name," she replied. I was shocked by Jennifer's nerve. Even though I had explained everything when we got married, it seemed she hadn't listened at all. "Fine, I'll leave," I said with a sigh. Watching Jennifer gleefully unpack her furniture into Daniel's home, I wished he were here, but he was away on a business trip for a month. I decided to wait until he returned to discuss the situation. "Well then, take care," I said. With that, I left the house filled with memories. I knew where I was going next. I anticipated Daniel's reaction when he returned. "My name is Karen, and I'm a 65-year-old housewife. I worked until I was 60 and now live comfortably thanks to my pension and the inheritance from my husband, who passed away 5 years ago. He came from a wealthy family and owned several properties. Despite his wealth, he enjoyed working and was frugal. During the years we raised our child, there were times I got frustrated with my husband for being so focused on work, but I always admired him for taking on challenges with a smile. It's been 5 years since he passed away in October, in a tragic accident that happened on our wedding anniversary. I can't forget seeing the crushed cake box at the accident scene. He left behind a significant inheritance, insurance money, and our beloved son Daniel. Daniel turned 40 this year and works at a big company. After his father's sudden death, Daniel went through a rough patch. He was cheated on and divorced by his then-wife, and he briefly sought counseling to cope. I worried he might quit his job, but then he met Jennifer, and things turned around quickly once they started dating. They got married last year, and since then he's been even more driven at work and seems to have fully recovered. Jennifer, my son's wife, is a single mother with 2 boys aged 2 and 5. Daniel, who adores kids, had grown close to them, and I found them incredibly cute. Daniel couldn't have children due to an illness in his childhood, so the idea of having grandchildren filled me with joy. I thought Jennifer was quite generous, although she occasionally said things that surprised me. Overall, I believe she had a good heart. Daniel and everyone else seemed to agree. It never occurred to me that things could turn out the way they did. After their marriage, Daniel and Jennifer moved into a property near our house. I had suggested they live in one of my husband's houses. "We want to start in a home we've chosen ourselves," Daniel insisted. He explained that Jennifer had a preference for cute things, and none of the available properties matched her tastes. When I first heard this, I was puzzled, but since they were newly married with children, I decided not to dwell on it, thinking they deserved to enjoy their preferred lifestyle. Daniel was often busy with work and traveled frequently. During his absences, Jennifer would bring the kids over for dinner. The grandchildren were well behaved, but Jennifer's behavior was quite different. She helped herself to food and often went through our closets without asking, even entering our bedroom to take my jewelry. This shocked me, and I felt the need to confront her about it. Jennifer suddenly burst into tears. "I just wanted us to get along. Please don't hate me." Faced with Jennifer's tears, I found myself comforting her instead of addressing the issue. I chose not to tell Daniel about what happened, and since Jennifer didn't take anything else after that, I decided to keep the incident to myself. About 6 months into their marriage, Jennifer started sending her kids over to stay with us frequently. She would call abruptly the day before and hang up quickly, making it hard to say no. Reluctantly, I found myself taking care of the kids each time. Although they remained obedient, their table manners had noticeably deteriorated since we first met. They ate loudly and often spilled food outside their plates, despite being well behaved before. I had to remind them repeatedly, but they would only listen temporarily before slipping back into their old habits during the next visit. This routine left me feeling frustrated. Jennifer appeared unconcerned and would drop off her children at our home and leave quickly. Initially, Jennifer would visit with the kids, but after a few times, she started sending them over alone. "Jennifer, it's okay for the kids to come over, but I'd appreciate it if you could join them sometimes," I suggested. "But I'm quite busy," Jennifer replied evasively. That night, Daniel called me unexpectedly. "Hey Mom, could you try to be a bit more understanding with Jennifer?" "What do you mean?" I asked, confused. I thought I had been quite kind to her, but Daniel seemed to have a different perspective. "Jennifer feels pressured to visit often because she's afraid of being expected to help out like she had to in her previous marriage. She had a tough time with her ex-husband's family, so please go easy on her." "Really? Okay, I understand." It seemed Jennifer had misunderstood my intentions. I responded to Daniel with mixed feelings, and the next day, Jennifer sent the kids over to our house again. As their first year of marriage passed, the children began spending half of each week with us. Meanwhile, Jennifer would only visit a few times a month, staying for about 10 minutes each time. I started feeling uneasy about Jennifer, who always seemed too busy to talk. When I asked the children about Jennifer's plans, they would look guilty and shake their heads. Initially, I tried asking a few times, but their reactions made me feel so guilty that I couldn't bring myself to pry further. Then one day, Jennifer unexpectedly came over with Daniel. We sat down for coffee and had a pleasant chat after a long while. That's when Daniel spoke up. "I have something to discuss," he said seriously. "The kids have really bonded with you, and I'm away on business trips often, so I can't spend much time with them. If you're okay with it, I'd like you to move in and help Jennifer out. What do you think?" "Move in? Well, what about Jennifer?" I was taken aback by the sudden suggestion of living together, nearly dropping my coffee cup in surprise. However, I kept my composure and turned to Jennifer. "Karen has always been a tremendous help, and I'd really appreciate her assistance," Jennifer chimed in. "Is that so? Well, I'll need some time to think about it," I replied. Daniel seemed pleased with my response. Knowing him, he must be concerned about my well-being too. I pondered over the proposal for a couple of days and eventually decided to accept. From there, we began clearing out unnecessary items and preparing rooms for Daniel's family and the children. With the kids' help, we finished cleaning up sooner than expected, although the effort left me with daily muscle pain. A stark reminder of my age. Despite the challenges, I successfully cleared out 2 rooms. As I busily cleaned, Jennifer didn't offer to help at all, which made me increasingly uneasy about living with her. Then came moving day. As the movers brought in boxes, Jennifer pulled me aside into the garden. With a puzzled expression, I turned to her, only to be met with a malicious smile. Then, unbelievably, she said something that left me stunned. "Please leave. It's too cramped in here," Jennifer laughed, her smile both smug and unsettling. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Why was she asking me to leave when it was my house? I was bewildered. "This is my house, you know. What are you talking about?" I asked. "I know this house is in Daniel's name," she replied sharply. Jennifer's assertion left me feeling inwardly frustrated. Despite explaining everything when we got married, it seemed she hadn't paid attention at all. "All right then, I'll leave," I said with a sigh. I watched as furniture that reflected Jennifer's tastes was moved in, and she seemed overjoyed. It would have been better if Daniel had been there, but he was away on a business trip. He wouldn't be back for a month, so I decided to postpone any discussion until then. "Well then, take care," I said as I left the house filled with memories. I already knew where I was headed next. I eagerly anticipated Daniel's reaction upon his return. Without delay, I moved my belongings into my new home. The new home was a villa my husband and I had visited once, filled with memories, including where he proposed to me. While it didn't hold as many memories as our previous home, it held a special place in my heart, as we had planned to spend our second life here together. After finishing unpacking, I relaxed alone on the sofa. The place was very comfortable, thanks to the caretaker's diligent maintenance. I felt a pang of sadness for not seeing the children anymore, but I was prepared to sever ties depending on Daniel's response. A month passed quickly, and around the time Daniel's business trip ended, he called me. I picked up the phone, feeling a bit nervous. "Mom, where are you? There's no space for you here, and we were supposed to be living together. What's going on? Hasn't Jennifer said anything to you?" When I got back, Mom wasn't here, and Jennifer just cries without giving me any answers. "Well then, come to this address I'm about to give you," I replied. I gave Daniel the address and hung up. The next day, Daniel arrived at my new home with Jennifer and the children. When I opened the door, I saw Daniel looking a bit somber and Jennifer appearing pale. "Welcome. Is something wrong?" I asked, concerned. No, nothing," Jennifer replied, visibly tense, while the children looked around with curiosity. especially the 5-year-old who seemed particularly fascinated. I guided Daniel's family into the living room. As they took in the fully furnished space, Daniel seemed to realize that I had no intention of continuing our previous living arrangement. "Hey Mom, why did you suddenly decide not to live together?" Daniel asked, puzzled. "Well, Jennifer should have a good understanding of that, shouldn't she?" I replied. Daniel scratched his head with a slightly irritated expression before recounting what he had heard from Jennifer. "Jennifer mentioned that you didn't like her choice of furniture, right? But that was just for our room. Couldn't you have let it go? She also said she had to buy more furniture for the living room because you moved out." "Oh, so she added more furniture, did she?" I looked directly at Jennifer, who twitched nervously. Her lips curved slightly upwards, as if she believed Daniel wouldn't believe my side of the story without proof. "Jennifer, why lie?" I asked plainly. "I haven't lied about anything," Jennifer replied, tears welling up in her eyes. Daniel immediately stepped in to console her, seeming to view me as the source of the conflict. Meanwhile, the grandchildren hung their heads behind them, avoiding eye contact with Jennifer. I let out a frustrated sigh. "Jennifer, stop the fake crying. The children can see right through it." "That's awful, Daniel. I'm really not lying. Please believe me," Jennifer pleaded, clinging to Daniel and burying her face against him. Despite her words, her voice lacked genuine emotion. I felt annoyed with Daniel for siding with Jennifer in this situation. "Mom, Jennifer may have made mistakes, but leaving without discussing it isn't right. Can't we try to work things out?" Daniel pleaded. "Well, I do owe you an apology for leaving abruptly, but any reconciliation with Jennifer will have to wait until you hear this," I replied, tapping my mobile phone. Immediately, a voice played out loud, causing Jennifer's face to turn pale. "You recorded it?" I accidentally hit the video button while trying to capture the kids playing. The recording continued without my realizing. The voice from my phone sounded unlike Jennifer's usual tone, and Daniel looked bewildered, shifting his gaze between my phone and Jennifer. "Jennifer was the one who asked me to leave. I was just following her instructions," I clarified. "Is this really you, Jennifer?" "It can't be," Daniel demanded, pushing away from Jennifer, who clung to him, and asked her directly. However, Jennifer remained silent, staring at the ground. Daniel's frustration grew as he raised his voice, demanding answers from Jennifer. "It's not true. Are you taking Karen's side?" Jennifer managed to protest weakly, but the recorded voice clearly called out the children's names, leaving no room for doubt. Despite Daniel's persistence and Jennifer's attempts to dodge the truth, the situation became wearisome. Finally, Jennifer slipped up in exasperation. "I never wanted to live with someone else in the first place." "What? You were the one who wanted Mom to live with us," Daniel said, clearly shocked by this revelation. Jennifer defiantly explained her reasoning. "Exactly. I couldn't understand why Karen was living in a house under your name while we had to rent. I wanted a home of our own." It appeared Jennifer was worried about being judged for living in a rental property after marrying again. Daniel had leased a luxurious condominium in the area, which cost around $4,000 per month. Despite this, Jennifer seemed to look down on it simply because it was a rental. This attitude caused me a different kind of frustration. Jennifer glared defiantly at me. "And now Karen is harassing me. This is the house I've always dreamed of. Why are you living here?" Daniel looked perplexed by Jennifer's accusation. Unlike Daniel, I straightforwardly explained to Jennifer, who was clearly on edge. "Why?" "Because this property originally belonged to my husband." "That's a lie because this place is," Jennifer started, possibly thinking of the caretaker or something else she was mistaken about. I showed Jennifer a photo on my mobile phone. Upon seeing the person in the photo, Jennifer exclaimed, "Father?" My husband had passed away before Daniel remarried, so Jennifer had never met him. She had never referred to my husband as father. Therefore, the father Jennifer mentioned must be the children's paternal grandfather. The photo captured Jennifer's father-in-law and me shaking hands. It was taken as a memento when we moved in. Jennifer looked at me, her face turning pale. "How do you know him?" "How? Because he's the caretaker here, of course," I replied calmly. Upon hearing this revelation, Jennifer sat down right where she stood. Daniel also appeared stunned, struggling to grasp the situation. Sensing an opportunity to clarify things further, I decided to continue. "We had a conversation when we moved in. That's when I learned he's your ex-husband's father, and also the real reason behind your divorce." "The real reason for the divorce?" Daniel's voice echoed in surprise. Jennifer, no longer trying to pretend, became visibly flustered by my words. "Karen, there must be some misunderstanding. I'm sorry, let's go home together." "Mom, please tell me," Daniel interrupted Jennifer, his expression earnest as he looked at me for answers. It would have been less damaging for Jennifer if this had come to light later, but I had no intention of showing mercy. I instructed the grandchildren to go play in the garden. They glanced at Jennifer but obeyed my request and headed outside. Once the children were fully engaged in their play, I turned back to Jennifer. I heard from Jennifer that her divorce was due to her husband's infidelity, but in reality, it was Jennifer who had an affair. Daniel was visibly shocked, and Jennifer trembled, avoiding my gaze. I can't believe this. Karen, why would you lie about this? Daniel asked, clearly shaken by the revelations. Oh, I also have a copy of the notarized document here. I retrieved the document from a drawer and handed it to Daniel. Daniel's face went pale as he scanned through the document. What's all this? Compensation? Custody to be revisited once the child can choose? Meeting before remarrying? I was never told about any of this. That's right. The other family also claimed they weren't informed about the remarriage, I added. Jennifer stared down, her face drained of color. Daniel sighed heavily and turned to Jennifer, his expression now devoid of his earlier kindness. Remember when I got divorced because I was cheated on? What did you say then? That the one who cheats is entirely at fault, right? Unforgivable, right? Yeah, Jennifer muttered quietly. Daniel's voice grew heated in response to Jennifer's silence. So the story about divorcing to escape from your husband's infidelity and extreme control, putting the kids at risk, was also a lie. What's that about? Jennifer appeared unsure how to answer. Daniel's frustration intensified. And didn't you say, I would never cheat? Daniel pressed on, his voice sharp with anger. I had to say that or you wouldn't have dated me, Jennifer finally replied, her voice tinged with desperation. Right, of course, Daniel retorted sharply, not letting Jennifer finish. Daniel was visibly agitated, his breathing heavy with emotion. Jennifer, on the other hand, began to sulk defiantly. I've heard you've been declining visits since you started dating Daniel and apparently leaving all the housework and childcare to his family. And now you're trying to blame me after remarrying. Why are you making unnecessary accusations? Jennifer shouted at me, her voice loud and defensive. Daniel gave Jennifer a cold, distant look. Her unguarded outburst had shattered the image she had maintained. It's over between us. Let's get a divorce, Daniel stated firmly. No, I don't want a divorce, Jennifer pleaded, clinging to Daniel, who tried to shake her off impatiently. Despite his attempts, Jennifer persisted. Just as Daniel's frustration seemed ready to boil over, an unexpected voice intervened. Mom, you're saying the same things you told Dad. You've got a new boyfriend now, so stop bothering Daniel. Michael, Jennifer's eldest son, spoke with a surprising maturity for his young age. His sudden return from the garden surprised not just me, but everyone present. What? Why are you saying unnecessary things, Michael? Jennifer snapped, clearly caught off guard by her son's unexpected words. What do you mean by a new boyfriend? Daniel asked, squatting down to look at Michael, clearly perplexed. Michael spoke again, maintaining his composure. Whenever you're away, Mom tells me to go to Grandma's house, and then her boyfriend comes to pick me up. Michael, don't lie, Jennifer interjected quickly. Daniel hugged Michael tightly and turned a stern gaze towards Jennifer, who looked taken aback by his genuine anger. We'll talk about this later, including the boyfriend and the compensation, with him present. It's not like that. I love you. It was just a brief fling with that guy, Jennifer pleaded desperately. That guy, huh? Daniel remarked coldly, his disappointment evident. Jennifer looked crestfallen at Daniel's remark. With a resolute expression, Daniel stood up, shielding Michael, and stared coldly at Jennifer. Without hesitation, he forcefully escorted her out of the house. Wait, Daniel. Open the door. The next time we talk will be with a lawyer present. I'll arrange for the kids to see their father. I've already called my parents. They're on their way to pick them up. What do my parents have to do with this? Jennifer continued knocking on the door for a while, but soon the noise ceased. Shortly after, I heard voices arguing and then the doorbell rang. Jennifer's parents stood there, looking apologetic. After entrusting the grandchildren to me, they took Jennifer back with them. Later, the grandchildren were safely introduced to Jennifer's ex-husband's family. It turned out that Jennifer had changed her phone number and moved without informing anyone since she started dating Daniel, making it impossible to reach her. Her ex-husband and his parents were overcome with emotion and embraced the children as soon as they saw them. Although Daniel had already legally adopted the children, transferring custody back to Jennifer's ex-husband took some time due to the legal process. It seems Jennifer's life has taken a sharp turn after the consequences of her actions. Her strict reprimand from her parents and her current work situation at a family-run hotel indicate a stark change in her circumstances. With high alimony payments to both Daniel and her ex-husband, she reportedly has little respite from her duties. I can't stand it anymore. I want to quit, she frequently complains, but her relatives are keeping a tight rein on her. Meanwhile, Daniel, having experienced his second divorce, has sworn off marriage and thrown himself into his work. Despite the lingering shock, I recently learned he's reconnected with a childhood friend who lives nearby and is 10 years his junior. They'd occasionally go out for meals together, and this friend even visited me recently to say hello. It turns out she's harbored feelings for Daniel since they were kids and never pursued other relationships because of her enduring affection for him. As a parent, it warms my heart to see that the young girl who once dreamed of marrying Daniel still holds those feelings into adulthood. Daniel himself seems somewhat pleased by this newfound connection. Living in a house where I was proposed to holds immense significance for me. Despite the alterations Jennifer made, the house has been completely renovated and now serves as a rental property. Living here alone, I never feel lonely. It's as if my husband's presence is still nearby. I cherish each day, anticipating the second phase of my life where I'll gather stories to share with him when we're reunited.
Hi, it's Tara here, and I've got a story to tell you. It happened a few months ago, but it's still fresh in my mind. I want to share it to help you understand toxic behavior and when to stand up against it. I'm 32 years old and live with my husband Stephen, who's also 32, and our kitten. Stephen and I have been together since high school. We got married young and went to different colleges, but our relationship stayed strong. Next month, we'll celebrate 15 years together, but there's a hitch. My mother-in-law, Lily, won't be joining us. Lily never really warmed up to me. She has 2 sons, and she's always doted on them since they were born. In her eyes, no one is good enough for her boys. When Steve and his older brother C were kids, they enjoyed all the attention from their mom. They loved her a lot and didn't notice how controlling she could be. As they got older, Lily's controlling ways became a problem for her teenage sons. They weren't allowed to date or hang out with girls outside of school. Lily didn't let them have sleepovers with friends and threatened to punish them if they argued. Steve and Sean went to the same high school as me, so I knew them a bit. While Steve kinda agreed with Lily's rules, Sean rebelled. He often got in trouble for sneaking out and hanging out with girls. His mom even came to school once to threaten his girlfriend at the time. What Lily didn't realize was that Sean had grown a backbone and didn't listen to her anymore. He stood up for Jessie, his now wife, when Lily tried to scare her away and insult her. When they turned 18, they started avoiding Lily more and more. Lily wasn't happy about it at all. Stephen also thought Sean went too far. We were still new in our relationship, so I didn't say much to avoid arguments. But then Lily started targeting me. She did everything she could to break us up, even planning an expensive trip to Hawaii during prom week to keep us apart. Stephen did ask her to cancel the trip, but that was the only time he stood up to her. Whenever Lily criticized me and said hurtful things, Stephen didn't defend me. He even started believing her when she said I might cheat on him when we went to different colleges. We ended up taking a short break and Lily took Stephen out to celebrate our breakup. She never thought Stephen would come back to me. She was furious that we got back together. She kept harassing and humiliating me every chance she got. I tried talking to Stephen about it, but it didn't go well. Hey Tara, you know my mom is really disrespectful to me. I've always tried to be nice to her, but all she does is criticize me and call me names. I'm getting fed up with it. Can you talk to her about it? Tara, my mom's still upset about what happened with Sean. She's worried about losing me too. She just wants what's best for me and my future. Try not to take her words too personally. So you're okay with how Lily treats me? Seriously, Steve, remember when she tried to break us up? She only did that because she was worried you might cheat. If you had cheated on me, I would have been really hurt. She was just trying to protect me from getting hurt. Are you serious? She used your fears against you to break us up. How can you defend that? No matter what I said, Steve never saw things from my point of view. He always thought I was overreacting and believed Lily was just trying to protect him. He refused to believe me when I said Lily calls me to criticize me. He insisted Lily would never do such a thing and accused me of lying. Even Sean tried to talk sense into him. After hearing everything, Steve argued with Sean, saying he betrayed their mom. Things got weird between Sean and Steve. Sean ended up marrying Jessica, the same girl Lily tried to scare off. He invited Steve and me but didn't tell Lily about the wedding. Lily was furious and tried to get Steve to convince Sean to invite her. Steve, always siding with his mom, argued with Sean because of Lily. He almost didn't go to the wedding to support her. I said to him, "Are you really going to skip the wedding to support Lily? Remember what she did to Sean and Jessie in high school? She still complains about Jessie and blames her for taking Sean away. Why should they invite her to their wedding?" Look, you don't know everything. It's all a big misunderstanding. Mom was just trying to do what she thought was best for Scene. She can get carried away sometimes, but she's willing to patch things up. We're family and we shouldn't hold grudges. It's their wedding, and they can choose who to invite. It's not our place to make demands. We should respect their decision. I know I can't change much, but that's why I'm not going to the wedding. I want them to realize they're making a mistake. I'll RSVP tomorrow. They'll still have time to reconsider. Stephen, if you skip the wedding, they might cut you out too. They've already done that to Lily. Are you sure you want to risk losing your brother over this? After a lot of arguing, he finally agreed to go to the wedding. I was relieved, hoping things might improve. He saw how happy Scene and Jesse are without Lily's interference. They even moved far away and had the wedding there to keep Lily away. When Stephen showed Lily the pictures, she lost it. She cried on his shoulder and made him stay with her for a month. He even canceled our trip to Colorado to make it up to her. I was really upset by how he handled everything. However, I knew our love ran deep, and breaking up wasn't an option anymore. I just hoped Stephen would see the truth about Lily's awful behavior. Fast forward to 2 years ago, Stephen finally proposed, and I said yes. Lily was upset but pretended to be happy for him. Later, I found out she refused to give him her engagement ring because she thought I was a gold digger and our marriage wouldn't last. I love the ring Stephen picked for me. We're both engineers, so we make good money. He could afford to buy the ring himself. Plus, I'd rather wear something he chose than have Lily's jewelry. Wedding planning was a mess. Lily kept getting involved in everything, from cake tasting to picking a venue. She had to have a say in everything. She didn't like my ideas and tried to change the theme. Lily said my vintage theme was boring and tacky. I ignored her, but Stephen didn't. We discussed every decision carefully. I finally spoke up. This is getting ridiculous. It's our wedding, not hers. Your mom needs to give us space to decide for ourselves. I don't want her input on everything. She hates everything I choose. You need to tell her to back off. Tara, Mom just wants what's best for us. She's been to more weddings than us, so her input could be helpful in the future. You know, she missed Scene's wedding. She just wants to enjoy mine. I'm tired of hearing that excuse. She deserved to be uninvited from Scene's wedding. That was all her fault because Jesse didn't let her interfere. I won't let her control everything. She's welcome to be involved, but she can't criticize my choices. This is our wedding, Stephen. She already had hers. After a lot of persuading, he finally told Lily to back off. She threw a fit but calmed down a bit. Unfortunately, Stephen still went along with a lot of her choices. I was sad at first, but I knew it was also Stephen's day, so I went along to avoid more trouble. I wasn't confident enough to stand up for myself, and Stephen was too influenced by his mom to think clearly. The wedding turned into another disaster when Lily showed up in a white dress that looked like a bridal gown. Thankfully, Stephen realized the problem and insisted she change before the ceremony. She pretended she didn't have another dress. But my maid of honor came to the rescue with a dress I had bought for her. Lily had no choice but to wear it. During the reception, she made tearful speeches about feeling like she was losing her sons to awful women like me and Jesse. She tried to make herself out to be the victim and criticize our relationships. It made everyone uncomfortable, even her own family. My maid of honor took the microphone away and tried to lighten the mood. On our honeymoon, Lily called us constantly, crying about feeling lonely. She called Stephen repeatedly, and when she couldn't reach him, she called me. Where's my boy? What have you done to him? It's only been a month since the wedding, and you're already taking him away. No matter what you do, he'll always choose me over you. He'll never love you more than his mama. Lily, we're on our honeymoon. You can't keep calling us like this. Stephen's phone died, so he went back to our room to charge it. Why would I keep him away from you? I know how you are, Tara. All you want is his money. You can't stand the fact that he supports me. He sends me money and gifts every month. You want to isolate him so you can take all his money. But I won't let that happen. He's been taking care of me since his father died 10 years ago. Lily, I don't care if he supports you. You're his mom, so of course, he helps you out. I earn enough for both of us, so I don't want his money anyway. You need to stop accusing me. Shut up. You may fool him, but I know what kind of woman you are. Now give the phone to my son right now. I need to talk to him. Dealing with her on our honeymoon was just one of many tough conversations. When we got home, she cried for days because we didn't take her along. It was surprising when she scolded Stephen for going without her. But as usual, he focused on comforting her and ignored my concerns. I was slowly learning to handle her tantrums and speak up for myself. Things were okay until I found out I was pregnant. We were thrilled, and Stephen wanted to tell Lily right away. I was nervous, but I figured she'd be happy about her first grandchild. I couldn't have been more wrong. As soon as she found out, she started crying and yelling. She accused me of trapping Stephen with a baby to take him away from her. She even claimed I cheated on him and was passing off the baby as his. My husband tried to calm her down, but she wouldn't listen. I was tired of her drama by then. Her tantrums lasted for 2 weeks before she decided to visit us. She came early in the morning and let herself in with a spare key. Lily acted overly happy about the baby and even brought me gifts. Stephen thought she had finally accepted the baby, but I wasn't so sure. That evening, Lily offered to make us tea because it was chilly outside. Stephen was grateful for her kindness and gave me a look like he was saying, "See, I told you she's okay now." I decided to investigate. I excused myself and went to the kitchen to check on Lily. I saw her making tea and adding something from a carton. Both my husband and I are allergic to lactose, so we only use a specific brand of oat milk. The carton Lily used wasn't ours. She used the oat milk for 1 cup and the other carton for the other. I thought maybe she was just using a different kind of vegan milk for variety. But I was still uneasy when she handed me the suspicious mug. I panicked and switched cups with my husband when they weren't looking. We drank our tea, but Lily just smirked at me the whole time. Luckily, nothing happened that night. But in the early hours of the morning, I heard my husband throwing up in the bathroom. He kept going back and forth, and it woke me up. Eventually, he came out and lay down on the couch, looking like he was in a lot of pain. Lily came out too and looked worried when she saw him suffering. She started crying. That's when I realized she had used cow milk in our tea. I was furious, but first, I had to get Stephen to the hospital. I called 911, and they sent an ambulance. Stephen was in a lot of pain and almost passed out. We got to the hospital, and the doctor said he needed to stay overnight. When the doctor came for a consultation, I made Lily confess to everything in front of Stephen. She was worried about her son, so it wasn't hard to get her to admit it. The doctor shook his head and said Stephen needed to stay in the hospital for a day. Stephen looked troubled, and suddenly he started to see through Lily's actions. He was baffled by what she had done. He asked her, "Mom, you know I'm allergic to milk. Why did you use it? We don't even keep cow milk in our fridge. Why did you bring it here? And Tara doesn't drink cow milk either, you know that." "Stephen, believe me, I didn't mean to hurt you. I don't know how this happened. I know you can't have milk. I'm your mother." "Then why did you put milk in my tea, Mom? What happened?" Lily just kept crying in the corner. That's when I decided to tell him the truth. "I know why Lily brought cow milk into our home. You see, it wasn't meant for you. It was meant for me." "What?" "Tara, you can't have cow milk either. Lily knows that. Why would she bring cow milk for you? I don't understand." "Lily wanted to hurt me and our baby. I don't know why, but she wanted me to suffer. She gave me the cup you drank from. I switched our cups because I didn't want to risk our child's health. Turns out, I was right. There's no way she would do that." "You're lying, Tara." "Mom, say something. You told me you were happy for us. Tell me you didn't do this." Lily started wailing and screaming. It got so loud that a nurse had to take her out. None of us wanted her there anymore. Stephen was shocked and traumatized by what she did. He apologized to me and promised to keep Lily away from our lives. I comforted him as best I could and took him home the next day. I changed the locks on our house while he was in the hospital. He called Lily and told her we were cutting off contact for good. More crying and wailing followed. "Mom, after what you've done, I don't want you around. I've always defended you, but I see now how much you've hurt my family. I won't allow it anymore. You've crossed the line." "Stephen, please. I didn't mean for this to happen. I felt lonely because you were spending all your time with her. I thought the baby would make things worse. I just wanted to hurt her a little and make her suffer. I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't change what you did. It's unforgivable. I can't even imagine what would have happened if Tara drank the tea you gave her. I'm disgusted with you, and I don't want to hear from you again. Leave us alone." With that, we started cutting off contact with her. She showed up at the house and tried to get in with her keys. When she saw we changed the lock, she started banging on the door. We called the cops and let them handle it. We blocked her on all our phones and social media. Sean and Jesse informed our extended family about the situation. Everyone was disgusted and appalled by her behavior. After discussing Lily's actions with me, Stephen, Sean, and Jesse, we decided to get a restraining order against her. We had evidence from our security cameras and her confession to the doctor. The order was granted quickly. So far, she stayed away but has tried to gather information from our extended family. No one has entertained her demands, and we've cut off financial support, so she had to get a job at Walmart. We're rebuilding our relationship with Sean and Jesse. Stephen and Sean had a heart-to-heart conversation and resolved their issues. Jesse and I were always close, so this brought us even closer. Thankfully, my husband has finally seen the truth and protected me from Lily. We're happy and eagerly awaiting the birth of our child. To be safe, I made it clear to Stephen that Lily won't have a relationship with our child. To my surprise, he agreed immediately. Our household is peaceful now that Lily's gone for good. We might move to Scene City after our child is born. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know we'll face it together.
My in-laws caught us completely off guard when they moved in without any prior notice. At first, I thought they were merely delivering a large package, but to my astonishment, they emerged from the front door, stating they had no intention of paying rent or doing any chores. They insisted that we take care of them and demanded the biggest room, expecting us to assist with their move. It was surreal. My father-in-law, Austin, and brother-in-law, Owen, had simply barged in and started giving orders about rearranging things. The situation was so absurd that I couldn't help but chuckle, finding humor in the midst of the chaos. With a grin, I reassured them, "It's totally fine," and promptly called my husband, knowing he would be home soon. I couldn't help but wonder how he would react to this unexpected mess, especially considering that the ones who had mocked me were his own family. As anticipated, my husband arrived home, visibly upset with Austin and Owen. However, he surprised everyone by showing them a document. I couldn't contain my amusement as I watched his father and brother's expressions change, understanding that they had no grounds to stay here without our consent. In the end, the tables turned, and it was I who moved out of the house. My name is Catherine Miller, a 34-year-old remote worker. Due to certain family circumstances, I'd opted for a job that allowed me to work from home, giving me the flexibility to manage household chores and explore new recipes whenever I pleased. I met my husband, Michael Miller, through a dating app during the peak of a flu outbreak. Despite his frequent business trips, Michael wanted us to live together so I wouldn't feel lonely. We fell in love quickly, and marriage was on our minds. However, my irregular periods made it difficult for us to conceive, leading to emotional struggles. Opening up to Michael brought us closer, and we resolved to face life's challenges together. Our peaceful life was disrupted when Michael's father, Austin Miller, called us, complaining about not receiving greetings from our end. Although Michael had reservations about meeting his father, we decided to visit his parents' home. His reluctance was evident as we prepared to go, his frown deepening with every step. Throughout the journey, Michael's displeasure was palpable. He remained silent, clearly indicating his desire to avoid the impending encounter. I wished I knew the reasons behind his aversion, but he chose not to share. Despite my curiosity, I respected his silence, hoping he would eventually open up and confide in me. As we approached his parents' house, we carried a box of pastries as a gesture of goodwill. Michael's tension was undeniable, reflecting the complex relationship he had with his father. I had anticipated receiving sarcastic remarks, but I mustered the courage and left the house. Stress often gave me stomach aches, a fact not lost on Michael, who looked at me with concern and asked, "Are you okay? Should we do this another time?" "I think I'm fine," I replied, attempting to steady my nerves. "It wouldn't be right if we didn't greet your father, right?" It was the same father who had complained over the phone, and there was an air about him that suggested he wouldn't forgive us easily. The situation felt more troublesome than anything else. Michael, too, seemed to sense the tension and was eager to drive, perhaps to keep himself distracted. I couldn't shake the feeling that there were deep-seated issues at his childhood home. Meeting such a father-in-law could be tiresome, but I never regretted choosing Michael. I cherished the kindness he showed me and his occasional clumsiness. It was these little things that meant the most. Lost in thought, we eventually arrived at Michael's childhood home, which was conveniently close to our apartment. It was within walking distance, just a short stroll away if we ever felt like it. As I entered his house, his father greeted me with a big smile. Michael, on the other hand, gave his father a slight glare as he stepped inside. From a room deeper inside the house, I could hear Michael's raised voice. "You can't just mooch off Dad because you're unemployed and stay at home all day. How old do you even think you are?" "Shut up. What I do isn't any of your business." Owen, Michael's brother, defiantly held his own. To sum up the argument, Owen had been living an unemployed lifestyle since his late 20s, without any valid reason like health issues. It was simply because he felt jobs didn't suit him, while Michael understood the desire for a job that suited one's preferences. It was frustrating to see Owen not even attempting to find one. Their father was no different, constantly bringing home different women and ending relationships time after time. Michael always said there was no way they could be happy living like that. "I'm not here to babysit the two of you. I came to announce that Catherine and I are getting married," Michael declared firmly. Yeah, got it. If you want to brag about being happy, do it somewhere else. I'm good if I can just live with Dad." Owen brushed off the confrontation, deeply engrossed in his video game. Annoyed by the sight, Michael was about to react when we realized his father was looming over us. "Catherine, huh? If you're going to marry Michael, you better be ready to take care of his family. Once you're married to Michael, we're family. You get that?" While that might be true, I didn't think it was mandatory. "While that may be true, I don't think it's mandatory," I replied, trying to stand my ground. "What'd you just say, young lady? You've got some nerve. I'll teach you some respect for your elders." Suddenly, his father raised his voice, and I was snapped back to reality, taken aback. Michael quickly pulled my hand, and we managed to leave the house. Dread washed over me as his father, appearing more like a terrifying monster, began chasing us. There was something deeply unsettling about that family. The fear lingered, even as we attempted to choose an apartment. His father always seemed to beat us to it, deciding for us. To prevent such incidents from recurring, Michael and I decided we needed to move. Thanks to my job in web-related work, I had the flexibility to work from anywhere with just a computer. My job wasn't the issue, but Michael's was. While he enjoyed household chores, he also owned a carpentry business, often traveling for work. Consequently, I ended up handling most of the moving process. There was an inevitability to our situation, but I couldn't shake the feeling that his father and the jobless Owen might visit. Given my knack for bad premonitions turning true, all I could do was hope they wouldn't come. In the meantime, I proceeded with the moving arrangements, taking Michael's opinions into account. I wanted to get everything sorted before they potentially showed up at our house. Once the moving process was done, I was finally able to shift to working from home. There were still a few loose ends, including contacting a representative regarding a web video project I had discussed earlier. While I was engrossed in messaging and talking on the phone, I heard a knock on the front door. Michael usually didn't bother knocking. He would simply walk in. The unexpected visitor puzzled me. Could it be his father and Owen? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. As I contemplated this, a loud, aggressive voice echoed from behind the door. It was his father, Austin. Panic set in. Michael wasn't back yet, which meant I had to handle this situation alone. Perhaps talking to him would resolve things. I ended my call with the client and cautiously approached the front door. The relentless knocking only confirmed my suspicions. It had to be his father. Uncertain of his intentions, but determined to protect our peace, I mustered a polite greeting and opened the door slightly. Before I could react, Owen forcefully pushed the door open, dropping a large bag at the entrance with a satisfied grin. He theatrically collapsed onto a chair, exclaiming, "I'm exhausted." I asked Austin what was going on, And he explained, "We couldn't pay the mortgage on our place, so we sold it and decided to move. Naturally, we won't pay any rent or do any chores, so take care of us." With a self-centered air, both his father and Owen strolled into our apartment. Owen, lugging his baggage, scanned the rooms to decide where he would settle. Meanwhile, his father, after depositing his enormous bag in the living room, began to complain about the room's size. "Come on, this apartment is meant for 2 people, you know. If we're going to have 4 people living here, we might need to find another place." However, Michael and I had already chosen our next home, and our moving date was just around the corner. "I'm going to take the upstairs room," Owen declared, showing no consideration for the situation. "Catherine, can you tidy up this room for me? And haven't you put too much stuff in the living room? There's no space for us to even eat together." I was left utterly speechless by their audacity, as they said whatever pleased them without any regard for courtesy. Deciding that I needed to inform Michael about the situation, I was suddenly startled by the sound of someone punching a wall, most likely out of anger. However, the words that followed provided a small relief, indicating that I might not have to deal with these two any longer. Unfortunately, due to work circumstances, Michael couldn't return to the apartment. The burden of handling the situation fell upon me, and as a woman, facing 2 men alone felt unsafe. So, I decided to make a call for help. The person I called was a friend who had previously assisted both Michael and me with our moving preparations. She happened to live in a building constructed by Michael's company, and her name was Olivia Lewis. Olivia was a CEO who owned properties overseas. When I explained the situation to Olivia, she expressed her unease about the father and son in my home. Soon enough, they arrived at our apartment, arrogantly scattering their belongings everywhere. Despite the fact that Michael and I were the rightful owners of the apartment, with me being the leaseholder due to my remote work, they seemed oblivious to the reality. With a gracious smile, I told the 2 clueless men, "That's totally fine. We're moving out of this apartment anyway." His father, appearing desperate, clung to me. I couldn't hide my condescending look as I firmly stated, "Don't cling to me looking so pitiful. It's embarrassing." He was on the verge of tears, trying to reason. "It's a joke, right? Tell me it's a joke." I responded sternly, "It's not a joke, Austin. Michael and I decided this together. There's no way I'd joke about it now." The same man who had been smug about the living room just a while ago was now clinging to me, looking truly pitiable. Owen, puzzled by the scene between his father and me, came downstairs and couldn't believe what he was witnessing. "Dad, are you seriously trying to make a move on Michael's wife? Now that's just unbelievable," Owen remarked. I had a few choice words for Owen, who was making such comments. To begin with, as soon as he arrived at our place, I was infuriated by his audacity in searching for his own room in a house he hadn't even rented. Their actions were beyond my comprehension. If anyone should be saying unbelievable, it's my line. You folks moving into someone else's house is just unbelievable. You didn't even have a lease. What made you think you could just move in and live here? Realizing that I needed assistance in dealing with this situation, I decided to call Olivia, who held considerable authority as both the landlord of an apartment complex and its general manager. Olivia was a respected figure in the area, often referred to as the CEO due to her prominence. There was no way they could talk their way out of this once she arrived. Olivia soon arrived at the parking lot and entered the room. Olivia assessed the situation alongside me and the 2 men and seemed to grasp the core issue. She decided to contact Michael to address the matter. After a brief conversation with Michael, Olivia appeared to have resolved the issue. Her expression was dead serious as she inquired, "Did you handle the tax declaration after selling your house?" "No, not yet," I admitted. "That's odd. We can't lease you the apartment without that. Please ensure you've reported it correctly, and then we may proceed with this room," Olivia explained, demonstrating a meticulous approach. When dealing with individuals like the ones we were facing, legal knowledge was essential to have a fair conversation. Michael must have been well aware of his father's troublesome nature. His father had a reputation for being self-centered and engaging in extramarital affairs, a story Michael had shared with me before one of his business trips. Michael's mother had left their house after discovering his father's infidelity, and her departure left Michael feeling remorseful. She had even hugged Michael apologetically before leaving, expressing guilt for leaving him in such a household. Michael had then taken over all the household chores. However, his father's philandering behavior only worsened over time, while Owen kept jumping from one job to another before ultimately becoming unemployed around the age of 28. He took pride in receiving unemployment benefits and eventually withdrew from social interaction, feeling overwhelmed. Faced with the daunting task of taking care of Owen and their father, Michael decided to marry me. They were diligent in paying utility bills, but occasionally skipped out on insurance premiums and other minor fees. Michael even worried about being unable to complete the house loan payments. Realizing that they weren't responsible adults, Michael eventually decided it was time to move out. When his father began arguing with Olivia, Michael sent me a message instructing me to intervene. I stepped in between his father and Olivia and calmly stated, "Excuse me, but Michael and I are moving out tomorrow due to some reasons." His father seemed taken aback and asked, "Hey, hold on. What's going on? I didn't hear about this from Michael. Shouldn't he inform his father when he's moving?" I replied, "He said he didn't want to talk to you about it. He thinks it's best to live separately from a philandering, selfish person like you and Owen." To emphasize my point, I showed his father our conversation on WhatsApp, where Michael had voiced his dissatisfaction with his father. Although I had only been a listener, I had gathered a very negative impression of their past actions. Even during our brief interactions, I couldn't help but find it peculiar for his father and Owen to move into our apartment. Based solely on that fact, I had doubts about the reliability of this father and son duo. Olivia interjected during his father's grumbling, explaining, "Even if Catherine leaves, if you, Austin, don't declare the sale of your previous house, you won't be able to rent an apartment in the future." Austin, appearing somewhat baffled, responded, "But I have money on hand. Isn't that enough?" Olivia clarified, "No, it's not just about selling the house and being done, Austin. If you don't declare it, there are penalties. You'll be the one at a loss. Are you okay with that?" Austin reluctantly agreed, acknowledging the point. Olivia's reasoning made sense in the context of real estate transactions. If he had sold the previous house, he would eventually need to report it to the local authorities. Perhaps he hadn't even reported it to the real estate agency, which would be suspicious. Given their lack of research and understanding, it was evident that Austin and Owen had moved into our place without considering the necessary procedures. As I examined the documents Olivia had brought, it was apparent that they didn't comprehend any of it. I had been fielding questions from Austin and Owen about the documents and couldn't help but wonder how long it would take for them to grasp the situation. Michael and I had resided in this apartment for quite some time, and we had taken the initiative to research the necessary procedures. That's why everything went so smoothly for us. There were always pros and cons to everything, and it seemed like common sense to check things out before making such a significant move. Yet they had moved into our place without giving it any thought, which I found highly questionable. The ones acting recklessly were Austin and Owen. In that moment, Olivia decided to issue a warning to the two of them. "Please don't assume you can just move into this apartment immediately. I'll check everything thoroughly and get back to you. Then we can decide on the next steps," Olivia said firmly. Owen seemed to understand, sitting quietly and listening. To be on the safe side, I chose to spend the night at my parents' house as the apartment was going to be rented out the next day. I didn't want to sleep with two guys, especially ones who lacked common sense. Considering the risk of getting involved in some mess, I decided to let Michael's father and his brother stay in my apartment. Olivia, whom I got along with at the real estate agency, had suggested it too, indicating there might have been genuine issues. If anything went wrong, it could ruin our moving plans with Michael. I entrusted the situation to Olivia, the real estate agent, and informed Michael to proceed with the preparations for our new place. I stayed in touch with Olivia to check on how the two were doing. Based on her recommendation, the apartment was rented to Michael's father and Owen for just a few days. Olivia needed to verify if they had properly completed the necessary procedures at the real estate agency, and if they had been paying their taxes regarding the house they claimed to have sold. She also had to contact the associated real estate firm. It turned out that not only had they neglected post-sale procedures, but they also hadn't paid their taxes. Moreover, Olivia reported them to the police, suspecting they might have run off with just the sale money, hinting at a potential scam. To be safe, Olivia decided to inform Michael's father and Owen, who were staying in the apartment. If false information was provided to the real estate company, penalties would surely be enforced. They would not only have to pay the taxes, but also face potential penalties. I wondered how much money would be left in the end. According to what I heard from Olivia, it seemed that it might even go into the negative. The reason was that they had only consulted one real estate agency, which had good reviews and word-of-mouth recommendations. They believed the estimate would be the same no matter which agency they asked. Another task they had neglected was the property transfer process. In simple terms, it involved changing the property's name from Michael's father to the new owner. If there was any outstanding mortgage on the house, it should have been paid from the sale. But as expected, they hadn't paid it, turning the situation into a case with interrogations regarding the amount due and possible fraud. What was particularly bad was Michael's father insisting he knew nothing about it. As for Owen, he couldn't return to his old home, and he lost our apartment. He was forced to find a job with housing provided. However, he only had experience being a shut-in and living off his parents. Eventually, my parents took him in, but they made it clear that once he found a job with housing, he had to move out. With some guidance from my parents, it seemed he might secure a job. I hoped Michael's father and Owen would learn to live responsibly. Meanwhile, Michael and I decided to relocate overseas. Michael's hard work had been recognized, and he was offered a project abroad in Spain. However, both of us were Americans who couldn't speak Spanish. We diligently studied, trying to learn basic conversation skills. I wanted to be able to hold everyday conversations as much as possible. More than anything, it was my first time going on a business trip abroad, so there was a part of me that was really excited. Michael's job was overseas, so he started looking at potential homes for us. He kept me updated through messages and calls, always trying to ensure I wasn't anxious. Today, from the airport, I received a call from a worried Michael who was about to fly to Spain. "Are you okay? I know it's been hard because of my dad and brother. I'm totally fine. I'm more excited about living abroad with you," I reassured him. "Good to hear," Michael said, his voice filled with relief. His relief made me happy too. We were now free from those two, and we were going to enjoy our lives. To achieve that, we would keep studying, learn new things, and adapt to our new life. Everything was going to be all right. And so, our life in Spain began. A child came into our lives, and our daily routine changed as a family of 3. We cherished our happiness and continued to live strongly every day.
When my husband found out that I couldn't inherit my father's money, he started yelling. "What? You can't get any of his money? If that's the case, I don't want to be with you anymore. I want a divorce right now." After that, I got back at my husband and my sister, who married each other right away. My name is Chloe. I'm a 32-year-old office worker, and I've been married to my husband George for 2 years. I met George through a relative, and we got married. My family had some money, but since we were the only daughters, my relatives worried about who would take over. They introduced me to George, saying it would be fine for him to join our family. My husband George didn't officially join our family, but he started living with me at my parents' home. My mother passed away a few years ago, so it was just my father, my husband, and me living in my parents' house. My husband was very kind and treated my father well, so he seemed like a really good person. However, a relative who introduced him to me told me something worrying right before our marriage. I know it's strange for me to say this since I was the one who introduced George to you, but he's kind of obsessed with money, so be careful. I had already married him and was about to have a wedding ceremony, so it was too late to do anything about it. But I hadn't noticed any signs that he was obsessed with money, so I went ahead with the marriage. Even after getting married, I kept a close eye on my husband because of what I had heard. But I didn't see any signs of money obsession from him. However, he seemed to be interested in my father's money and would casually ask about it when he was having a drink with my father. My father was open about it, so I didn't worry too much. Another thing my husband was curious about was my younger sister. She is 5 years younger than me, and unlike me, who is calm, she is lively and outgoing with a vibrant social life filled with men. She doesn't look like me, and my husband was surprised when he first saw her. Your sister has a completely different vibe from you, Chloe, doesn't she? Seeing my husband fascinated by my beautiful sister, with her striking looks contrasting my plain and boring appearance, gave me mixed feelings. However, the relative who introduced me to George was worried that if I, being modest and plain-looking, couldn't get married, there would be no one to inherit after my family. I thought there was no need to worry because I had a beautiful sister. But later, I understood why that relative was worried. My father was very lenient with my sister, letting her go to college after high school and even to a vocational school after she graduated from college. My sister didn't have a particular goal. She just didn't want to work. On the other hand, my mother was strict with her, insisting she should get a job right after college. But my father overruled my mother and let her go to vocational school. After graduating from vocational school, my sister got a job at a company owned by a friend of my father's. But she quit after just 6 months. I was shocked by her excuse for quitting. I couldn't show my full potential at that company. My mother and I were puzzled by how my sister spoke as if she had already mastered her job after only 6 months. But my father believed her and quickly arranged for her to work at a different company. After a while at the new job, our mother fell ill and had to be hospitalized. While our mother was in the hospital, my sister visited every day, often skipping work. Eventually, she quit that job too, claiming she needed to take care of our mother. However, her idea of caregiving mostly involved being in the same room as our mother, chatting or spending most of her time staring at her smartphone in the waiting room. After our mother passed away, I took on the responsibility of managing her affairs, including picking up her laundry from the hospital and ensuring she had fresh clothes. Meanwhile, my sister wasn't much help. Our mother may have enjoyed having her around to chat with, but as her health declined over a month, she couldn't even hold conversations anymore. Within 2 weeks of her condition worsening, she passed away. Both my father and sister were too shocked to arrange the funeral, so I took charge of that. Thankfully, our relatives pitched in, and we gave our mother a proper farewell. Following our mother's death, my sister moved out of our parents' house and started working part-time. However, her earnings weren't enough to cover her rent and utilities, so our father began footing those bills. It seemed she was spending her money on fun rather than saving. Whenever her part-time income fell short, she turned to our father for financial support. Our mother used to be strict with her, so even when she started working, our father didn't give her an allowance. Now, though, he provides her with whatever she needs. I realized that both my father and sister were content with their financial arrangement, so I didn't see any issue. Even after I got married and moved in with my husband at my parents' place, my father continued giving my sister an allowance. At that time, I didn't notice, but it turns out my sister was also asking my husband for money, and he was giving it to her willingly. He couldn't refuse her and told her to keep it a secret from me, saying, "Don't tell Chloe about this, okay? She might get jealous." My sister lived off this allowance from our father and the money from my husband, doing part-time work when she felt like it. However, this lifestyle couldn't last because our father fell ill and had to be hospitalized. While I juggled visits to the hospital between work and caring for our father, my sister never showed up. Instead, she started calling me and demanding money. "Since I've been getting money from Dad every month, I need you to continue that. The rent and utility bills are all being paid from Dad's account anyway," she said angrily, revealing this information for the first time. I was furious with my sister. Instead of worrying about our hospitalized father, she was only concerned about her own finances. Despite wanting to hang up, I knew my sister was also in a tough spot, so I asked her how much money our father was giving her each month. "How much does Dad give you each month? You really need to find a job soon and start supporting yourself." In a grumpy tone, my sister replied, "Stop nagging me. I was getting $1,000 every month, not including rent. I was taken aback by my sister proudly stating the amount. It made me worry that with such a substantial monthly allowance, she might lose any motivation to work seriously. I assumed our father would recover soon after his hospitalization, so I didn't see it as a major issue to keep supporting my sister financially. However, our father's condition suddenly took a turn for the worse, and I urgently reached out to our relatives. The doctor also informed me of his critical condition, leaving me deeply shocked. I desperately needed support from my husband during this tough time, but he claimed to be busy with work and rarely visited the hospital. When he did come, he'd ask insensitive questions like, "Your father must have a huge inheritance, right? Since you and your sister are the only heirs, you'll split it evenly, won't you?" I was speechless in response to my husband's focus solely on the inheritance. It dawned on me that this was what my relatives meant when they warned me about his obsession with money. I felt a deep sense of disappointment. Even when I called my sister to tell her about our father's critical condition, she only cared about her own financial needs. "Forget about that. Just make sure you keep sending me money every month. I can't survive without it." The call ended abruptly. I was furious at my sister's selfish words, but I also felt uneasy hearing a faint male voice in the background that I recognized all too well. It gave me a sinking feeling. About a month later, our father passed away, but neither my sister nor my husband was present in his final moments. Having gone through my mother's funeral, I understood the weight of organizing such an event. To add to the burden, neither my husband nor my sister offered any help. My sister didn't even attend the funeral. My husband did show up, but as soon as it ended, he disappeared, citing work. Even the relative who introduced us noticed his absence and questioned me about it. "What's going on with your husband? It's odd for him to be missing like this, isn't it?" All I could manage was a bitter smile in response. "He seems tied up with work. He had to head back home," I explained to the relative, who sighed in response. Yet it was I who wanted to sigh just as much. After the whirlwind of my father's funeral settled, my husband approached me with a smirk on his face. "Finally done, huh? So how much did you inherit? Even if it's split between the two of you, it's gotta be a tidy sum, right?" As warned by my relative before our marriage, it seemed my husband's mind was preoccupied with thoughts of my father's inheritance. Disheartened by his attitude, I replied casually, "My sister gets $100 million and I get nothing." I hadn't even spoken to my lawyer yet, and with the funeral just behind me, I hadn't sorted out my own emotions. Seeing my husband so eagerly discussing the inheritance made me feel like laughing out loud in disbelief. Without missing a beat, my husband erupted. "What? You can't inherit any of his assets? In that case, I have no reason to stay with you. Let's get a divorce right away." Feeling similarly, I shot back, "Fine, let's do it. You married me for my father's inheritance in the first place, didn't you? I'll divorce you." As I said this, I handed him the divorce papers I had already prepared. He seemed a bit taken aback as I brought them out, almost as if he expected it, but he signed them nonetheless. Just before leaving, he uttered these words as my now ex-husband. "I'll divorce you since you have no inheritance and marry your sister Emily to get the $100 million. Despite that, I promptly filed the divorce papers, severing ties with my deceitful husband. The next day, it seemed he had already submitted a marriage certificate with my sister. A few days later, I received a call from him. Still believing his delusion, he shouted, "When are we starting the inheritance process? Get Emily her $100 million as soon as possible." I had been expecting his call. I didn't want to be the one reaching out to him, as he had left our home on his own. I responded in a composed, business-like tone. "Let's discuss it at my place this Sunday. I'll be prepared for the proceedings." My ex-husband, believing he was about to cash in on an inheritance, hung up the phone with joy. Little did he know, I eagerly anticipated his reaction when he learned the truth. When the weekend arrived, both he and my sister came to my parents' house, surprised to find a lawyer waiting there. Nevertheless, my ex-husband seemed confident. "Of course you need a lawyer when there's an inheritance involved," he remarked. Then, with a puzzled expression, the lawyer addressed my ex-husband. "Before we discuss the inheritance, there's the matter of property division that your ex-wife has brought against you." The lawyer proceeded to show my ex-husband a series of photos, images capturing him leaving my sister's house on specific dates clearly marked. Addressing him firmly, the lawyer continued, These photos serve as evidence of your affair prior to the finalization of the divorce. You will need to comply with the terms of the property division settlement. I had overheard my ex-husband discussing the inheritance on the phone with my sister, prompting me to instruct my lawyer to investigate his infidelity, perhaps thinking I was preoccupied with my father's funeral. My ex-husband and sister had been meeting almost daily at her house, providing ample evidence for my case. Both were taken aback when the conversation shifted from inheritance to their affair. But my ex-husband quickly composed himself and countered. Property division is nothing compared to the $100 million inheritance. I'll settle it immediately. As the lawyer presented the documents, my ex-husband, still speaking with arrogance, signed them without hesitation. Once confirmed, I calmly informed him, "Enjoy your life with my sister, who gets nothing from inheritance. Since you've signed, I'll ensure the property division is enforced." Upon hearing she inherited nothing, my sister exclaimed, "What? Why do I get nothing? I'm supposed to receive $100 million. My ex-husband also turned red and shouted, "There's no way, there's no inheritance. I won't let you take it all." The lawyer intervened calmly, addressing their anger. Emily is actually the biological child of Chloe's late mother from a previous relationship and was never formally adopted by Chloe's late father. Therefore, Emily, you cannot inherit your father's estate. I also explained to my bewildered sister, "When our parents remarried, Emily, you were about 1 year old. You probably don't remember, but I recall it vividly. I was 6 years old at the time and was thrilled to suddenly have a sister. Never did I imagine that this same sister would end up taking my husband. Our parents, both burdened with young children from previous marriages, aimed to strike a balance between us when they remarried and began parenting together. My mother loved me as her own daughter, and my father cherished you, Emily. Perhaps he spoiled you more because you weren't his biological child, being overly cautious. Despite both of them remarrying with children, my mother, suspected by some relatives of being interested in my father's assets, chose not to officially adopt you. Those relatives who consistently recommended suitors for me did so knowing I was the sole heir to our father's wealth. If our parents had had a child together, things might have been even more complex. But fortunately or unfortunately, they didn't. Perhaps they avoided having more children to prevent future inheritance disputes. Now understanding that my father had been financially supporting my sister even into her adulthood because he couldn't leave her his inheritance, I realized the extent of their relationship. Like my sister, I also hadn't been formally adopted by my mother, but it never affected how we saw each other. It seemed our parents hadn't disclosed their remarriage to my sister, and today was the first time she learned the truth. As for my ex-husband, his face turned from red to pale as the situation sunk in. Not only was he not inheriting what he expected from my sister, but he was also facing a property division claim he had already signed off on. With a pale face, he asked me, was it a lie that my sister was getting $100 million and I was getting nothing? Suppressing a laugh, I replied, "Of course, it was a lie. It was my way of getting back at you for cheating on me. Besides, my father's estate was nowhere near $100 million, even though he was wealthy." Suddenly, my usually quiet sister erupted, "I've been shopping so much, thinking I'd inherit Dad's money. What about the support Dad was giving me until now? Will you take care of that, sis? You're married with a dependable husband now, so you don't need it anymore, right? Make George support you." She glanced at my pale ex-husband, but he shook his head. "I can't do that. I also spent a lot, counting on the inheritance, and now with the property division, I'm stretched thin." With that, my ex-husband unexpectedly dropped to his knees before me, begging, "Chloe, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. Please, can we reconcile?" The lawyer, who had been packing up to leave, chuckled at the sight. Where had the arrogance he showed upon arrival gone? George, pleading on his knees like that, seemed utterly absurd. After our discussion, my ex-husband and sister left, and they divorced soon after. It seemed my ex-husband lost interest in my sister once he realized she wouldn't inherit anything. He mentioned property division, but since he had no assets, I arranged for him to pay from his monthly salary as advised by my lawyer, ensuring I received what was due. My sister, who lost our father's financial support, struggled to make ends meet with part-time work, but eventually faced overwhelming debts and declared bankruptcy. She moved out of her apartment, and I lost track of her whereabouts. My father's excessive support had made my sister dependent, hindering her ability to work seriously. Subsequently, my relatives began suggesting potential marriage partners for me as I lived alone in my parents' house. But I declined. I wanted to find a partner on my own terms, determined not to repeat the mistake of marrying someone like my ex-husband again.